what the exercise gives you is the experience of being on a team and doing something iteratively and getting better at it. But I could skip that. That will take some energy to organize everybody, to get out there. So I could skip that part, which is 30 minutes, so then that kind of almost gets us back on schedule. Or I can do it afterwards if anybody really wants to do it. I'll hang out after 3 o'clock. But maybe I will not have that part. Is that okay with everyone? Can I get a show of hands? Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, good. So we will just move on. A number of people said, hey, we want to talk about DevOps. That's a hot topic, basically, these days. As you're mentioning, there's a number of different meetings here. There's a number of different roles also we can talk about. Sprint planning is a meeting where we talk about what we're going to do. We look at our backlog. We estimate how big each of those pieces are. We think, how many of those pieces can we do? We take a chunk of that, and we say, this is what we're going to get done in the next 2 weeks. So that's the purpose of the sprint planning meeting. Then, as we're working over these 2 weeks, every morning we come together for 15 minutes. We say, hey, what did you do? What am I going to do today? Is there anything blocking? If there's something blocking, that's where the Scrum Master comes in. So I don't have permissions to get to the databases. I hear this every day. I don't have permissions to get to the database, because we have our security people who are trying to make our product more secure. That's a good thing, but then they're locking everything down. Go ahead. So those are the 3 things we do in the daily Scrum, but those 3 little questions can actually generate an enormous amount of work. Then at the end of the 2 weeks, let's say, or the 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever our sprint is, we have a review. So we bring the stakeholder in, and the stakeholder comes, or maybe it's just the product owner. A lot of times it's the product owner. And the team presents, hey, this is what we did. We met our definition of done, meaning our technical excellence. We've done all the things we're supposed to. We've had code reviews. We have our unit test. We have our automated testing. Whatever the team and the company has decided that those are the technical standards. We've met all those technical standards on each item of work. We're going to try to show you some, usually I'm in a room like this, and the team is showing something to the product owner, and they're showing, okay, we built this UI, and here's all the different fields you wanted, and here, we'll put in some calculation. You can see the different edge cases. They work properly. So that's what a review meeting would look like, is the team presenting the work to the product owner or the stakeholders. Huh? Yes, exactly. The things that we got finished, that we said we'd get finished. How much of it? A lot of times we don't get everything done, but if you can get 80, 90%, that's usually okay. Then we have a retro. That's only for the team, the dev team, the team that's doing the work. And the Scrum Master is usually there to help facilitate. The product owner can be there, depending on the relationship, but it's supposed to be a very safe environment. So it's an environment where you can be very straightforward and say, I could have gotten a lot more work done if the product owner had been a lot clearer with the requirements. We asked for these things. They said they would get it to us. There were new problems that were developed while we were doing our development, and the product owner, they checked out on us. Or things like that, where you can really kind of be straightforward about what's keeping the work from getting done. Questions. But the purpose of that retrospective is for people to actually really be able to talk and say what's going on. But you're right. In that sense, we have a list of things. Usually that list of what things went well is, hey, we communicated well, we got tons of work done, things like that. We used some new cool tool. Things that didn't go well was, we didn't figure out our automation properly, or we didn't get our builds aren't working. Our build server is incredibly slow, and we can't get our work done because it takes an hour to do our builds, And that's where DevOps would then jump in, on that level. So that's what the sprint retrospective is. So yes, you're absolutely right. Those are the 2 questions that are normally asked in that. There are a lot of different formats on these, so depending on which company you go to, but generally you're absolutely right. You ask what went well, and again, there's a whole book. A lot of information here on how this works. I'm just going to, this is kind of what a Scrum team, spaces are open, cross-functional, and contains their work. So this is what this is what it looks like at our work to a certain extent. You notice the people have open spaces. They have everything up visually. This is the work that they're doing. If you know how to read the cards, you can go to them and figure out where everything is in its different process. And for those who've been in Agile shops, this is a common thing. This is kind of a set format. And then we could go into more into Scrum about what the product owner does, and obviously jobs is somebody like, they have kind of personas for them. Product backlog. I won't go, I mean, these are like, this course usually takes 2 days to go through, so if I went through all the different slides, it would take a long time. Is there any specific more questions? We've kind of, as you mentioned, we've done a little bit of a light overview of things. We haven't gone into real depth on any of the Scrum stuff. We've touched on Agile. I'm just trying to give the sense of why Agile is important, why Scrum is important, and what it's being used for. But I know there's other people with lots of experience in the room with both of these, so if there's any other points they'd want to bring out at this point to kind of give everybody the benefit of their knowledge on Agile and Scrum. Any other thoughts? Important things that might have been missed? Okay. Then that's, as we've talked about, that's kind of a overview of Agile and Scrum. And again, this is not an in-depth course. Normally an in-depth course takes a long time. This is more just to give the feeling level of it. DevOps. So architects are usually resources for teams. That's how we do it at Cambridge. We have a solutions architect and we have enterprise architects there. And the solutions architects are working with the team, making sure that they are following the definition of done, which is making sure the technical excellence of the team stays at a high level. Then you have your enterprise architects that are working across the enterprise to make sure that databases are set up right. We're using microservices to start breaking things out. They kind of have these higher level architectural policies that then the teams follow. So in the way Cambridge works, we have enterprise architects that are setting architectural policies, technical policies, and solutions architects which are associated loosely with teams to help make sure that those teams follow those policies. Go. In our organization, it's the guy who hires all the developers. So yeah, he's the one who's done it. It's usually the architects. So they want to make sure you've got your unit test. So usually the product owner is making sure you're doing the right work, so you're doing the highest priority tasks. It's the teams to make sure that the work is done right, that the work is being done to meet the technical definitions of done. Because in any kind of enterprise system, if you have a smaller company and you have a couple really good developers, they can create stuff and they can cobble it together. But the minute you start to getting into bigger spaces, you have to follow you have to create quality work that fits together. Because if you put together something of, this person thinking like this person thinking like this person thinking like this, you build it about 2 stories and then it falls and you have a terrific mess and everybody loses their job and it goes someplace else and then they bring in a whole other group to try to fix the mess and on and on and on. If you are trying to build an enterprise system, you have to have these kind of technical definition of done so that you're building quality pieces that fit together in an acceptable way. And this is kind of where the architects are. They're trying to make sure that the bricks that they're using to build the company up, if you're looking at it in that kind of analogy, that they're made correctly, the pieces of program that are being put together, and that there's a structure that actually can encompass that program, which will do the work, which will satisfy your customers. I don't know if I answered your question. It's okay? Yeah. Okay. So DevOps. Any other questions on Agile or Scrum or other points? Again, I kind of moved through that. It seemed like it was quickly, but it was actually like an hour and a half. Any other thoughts on that? Okay, I'll just quickly go through then this DevOps part. So why DevOps? Oh, we got to do it over here. So why DevOps? And DevOps means, just so people know, Dev means developers and Ops means operations. So it's putting developers and operations together. Again, as we talked about in the earlier, in my mind, DevOps is an evolution. It's what has to happen for a business to have true agility to move forward. And because of Agile and Scrum, DevOps has now come in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's a movement, it's a mindset that has been generated. Actually, 2009 is kind of when the seminal paper was given, where they talked about, well, we'll go into it. Why DevOps? So some of these slides you may have understanding of. This is what it looks like to our production support people when they're working on the code that's been thrown over the wall to them. They're trying to fix very fragile artifacts. A lot of times they feel like the project managers are just off in some funny place. Yeah, they don't really know what's going on at all. This is what the developers are. Playing with fire in very dangerous places. This is the wall between our programmers and our people who have to actually take care of the programs. This is not a real wall, but this is kind of a it is very true. This is what happens because of these situations. You have our IT ops people and our developers at war. And this happens in our organization at times. This happens in many people's organizations. And there's nothing left for info. So all security is thrown out the window. You're just trying to get the product out. You're not even thinking that much about security, because if you don't get the product to your customer, you're not going to be around anyway. So these are the type of downward spiral that many companies fall into. Many companies go through this, and they go through different versions of it. But there must be a better way. So this was the kind of idea behind, this is why DevOps came out. And part of it, as I said, came out because people are using Agile. The developers they're using Scrum, and they're getting stuff out in 2 weeks. They're getting lots of stuff out. And our operations people haven't also changed, so they don't like to get stuff out. It's very scary for operations people, if the system's not built incredibly well or you don't have tons of automation, to release something, because you don't really know what's going to happen. If you start to get a really big system, you release something that went through test, it went through integration, it went through UAT testing, it kind of looks a little bit like what it should look like in production, and you get into production and some other app just dies. And we're in Code Blue at Cambridge, and we're spending 3 days, and we're on the phone with Microsoft till 2 in the morning, because they just, Microsoft, they have guys that come in every 4 hours all around the world. So you're with somebody in Seattle, then you're with somebody in the UK, then you're with somebody in India, then you're with somebody in Japan, and then finally, you haven't slept, but the Microsoft engineers have cycled through the whole night with you. So this is situations that I've been in and stuff. So there has to be a better way. And this was this seminal in Velocity, which is a conference in San Jose, pretty sure. These guys, John Alspa and Paul Hammond, where they talked about doing 10 deployments a day. Now that blew people's mind in 2009. The idea that you could deploy 10 times a day, people were lucky if they could deploy once every 2 weeks or once a month. How can you do 10 deploys a day? Amazon has since shattered that. They do 23,000 deployments a day. It's mind-blowing. Nobody, and how did they get to that place? How have they done that? And that's kind of the DevOps movement, is you've got Agile practices going on with your developers. Now you have to align your developers and ops together. You have to get fast feedback loops. You have to get lots of communication. That's again, in a very rough term, the DevOps movement. Again, when you put your operations people and they see what the downward spiral that we talked about, what kind of problems it brings them, too much time required to restore services, too much firefighting, unplanned work, planned project work cannot complete, frustrated customers leave. Devs see something else. They see failing bigger deployments, more difficult to diagnose. Most senior and constrained IT ops resources have less time to fix underlying process problems. But these aren't IT operation problems. These are business problems. So underline it all. What's going on with the devs? When you get these three different groups, when you get your business people, your programmers, and your production support people or IT people, they all have their different agendas. They're all kind of, and your security people. Your security people want to keep the data secure. They want to lock everything down. That doesn't allow the devs, they can't even get into their test environment. They can't even do any testing. So then, it takes them a day to get the permissions to do the test, which gets revoked that night. Then they have to go back and do it again. How quick is that? Not very quick. So you have all these different departments and different parts of the business sort of trying to do their job, but not really in alignment. They don't have the same value stream. They don't have the same goal. There's a book called The Phoenix Project. Has anyone read that book? That if there's one thing you do from today, when we leave in about 3 minutes, read that book if you can. Because that, to me, has the whole, it gave me the whole picture of how Agile, Scrum, and DevOps all fit together and create business agility. The Phoenix Project, yeah, I can. Where can I write it down, though? Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. The Phoenix Project. So if you read one book, and the first 170 pages, it's more of a novel about an IT organization. So it talks about this guy becoming a director and all the problems that he faces, all the problems between IT and production support in the business. And then the next 170 pages is how he solves them. And he uses 3 different kind of ways to do that. And they're kind of lean principles from manufacturing. Gene Kim is the main author of that. There's some other authors too. So yeah, if one thing, just read this book. I've got all my directors. I've got all my VPs. One of the Asynchronous, which is a company down in St. Louis, actually one of the top companies. It's probably the best in the Midwest. It's one of the best tech. The president of that company talked to me and said, or the CTO, sorry, and said, read this book. And so I read the book, and I was really inspired. And then I took it to all my top people. And there's a kind of a DevOps movement in my company has been started from that. I mean, there's a lot of work that went on before. The QA people were all trying to get things automated and continuous integration. So this is our future reality. This is the things that we want to happen. We want customers, we want installs that are predictable, requiring less time and effort than ever. We want engineering teams to take decisive steps to correct bad installs. So when our operations team, when our developers got with our IT people, these are things that they wanted. They wanted our business unit releases on schedule versus being delayed. So once you start to get your developers working with your production support people, working with that, you can come up with lists of things that you want to happen. Then you have to actually have all the, and this is our goal of DevOps in our organization. The goal of DevOps is a market-oriented culture where cross-functional teams rigorously test their hypothesis of which features will be most delight the users and advance the organizational goals. So once you get your business people in line with your developers, in line with your IT production support, everybody agrees this is what we want to get done. We want to give our customers, we want them to be awesome. We want to have a safe environment. We want our customers to feel awesome. We want to get continuous things done continuously. Once you get alignment, we've got different VPs from different areas of our company all working together on this. You start to get some synergy, and you actually start to get a lot more done. The relevant movements DevOps draws on is the Lean movement, the Agile Manifesto, Agile Infrastructure and Velocity movement, Continuous Delivery movement, and Toyota Kata. So these are all kind of the DevOps itself. If you look it up in Google, which you will, it's a lot of tools. There's a lot of tools that talk about how to get continuous integration working in your company. So basically, one of the big goals of DevOps is automation. So as a developer, I can build my thing, let's say in my C++ or C# stuff. I hit a button, there's a release manager, there's automated tests, there's automated regression tests. All my QA people have built these tests. It covers all the spectrums. And I was at a company up in Madison. There's just a screen. There's like a big TV screen. The developer hits his button. It passes everything. That goes green, and that codes out into production like that, like 10 minutes maybe, to do all the different build cycles and to go through the regression testing. That to me is that's the only way you can do 10 deploys a day, is if you have things like that built. That's the way. So automation plays a huge part in that, continuous integration. But the real thing that plays at the deeper level is that your programmers and your production support people say, we really want that. That's what we want for our company, and we're working with the business to make that happen. So there are all these tools that can allow you to get to that place. Sorry. There are all these tools that can get you there, but the main thing is you have to have unity within your company. You have to have first of all, your dev people and your ops people come together, DevOps, and figure out, we want to make this happen. We want to be able to release stuff quickly. We want to serve our business. And if these business people aren't aware of that, it doesn't do you much good. You have to get them pulled in too. And as they see these things happening faster and faster, there's a lot of synergy that starts to happen. All right, we're over time. There's 3 different ways at our company that we're working on it. This principle of flow, making our work visible, limiting work in process, reducing batch size. These are kind of practical things that we're doing to do DevOps at Cambridge, or that we're working towards. We're not there yet. Principles of feedback, working safety within complex systems, see the problems as they occur, swarm and solve problems to build new knowledge. Keep pushing quality closer to the source. What happens a lot in organizations is my devs are working really hard. They throw it over to the quality assurance people. They're working really hard. If they can't get it done, then they throw it over the wall. It's called like a shift right, but you want to shift left. If you're shifting everything right, you're shifting your problems farther and farther down until the IT people get it. They're putting it in production, our production support people, and the whole thing blows up. And it's because everybody kept shifting the quality, shifting the problems down, and usually it's the IT. And then and then that's when you see the war happen, because then they get blamed for something that happened. Oh, it worked in my test environment. But you see that they didn't really do all the tests, or the environments didn't really match up to production. So you want to shift everything left. You want to get things done at the source. You want to get it done right at the developer's thing. You want to give them the tools so they can push a button. It's done its regression testing. It's done its unit testing. And it just, you take all of that heartache out. The last way is the principle of continual learning. You want to make sure, as you're doing this DevOps, that, again, just like with Agile and Scrum, that you're continually learning, you're continually pivoting. You're enabling organizational learning and a safety culture, institutionalizing the improvement of daily work, transforming local discoveries into global improvements, injecting resiliency patterns into our daily work, and leaders reinforcing a learning culture. We're lucky at Cambridge, actually. We have that. People give us the time to learn, the time to fail. Amazon does that, although they're known to be a pretty hard culture, so I don't know. But from what I heard, they do give the ability to at least learn and stuff there. That's kind of the final thing. In the whole tech industries, you don't want to fight stupid. You don't want to fight the things that people do wrong. You want to make it more awesome. You want to make it bulletproof on many levels. And that, a lot of, is DevOps, is making things bulletproof, coming together, making sure that even if a junior developer didn't understand things correctly, and they worked on something which was, they took a risk and worked it on, that basically your system could recover from some logic code. I mean, kind of the best example of this is Chaos Monkey. Have people heard of that? Netflix built a program which will take down its servers. It built a program which will take down everything. And they just release it onto their servers. And they don't know what's going to happen. They just know that some server, Chaos Monkey, is going to take down a server somewhere. This is something that they imposed on themselves because they built their system so good that it can recover that fast. So that's a whole other way of thinking about putting out products and testing products. That's what Netflix is doing. Chaos Monkey, it'll take down, so, you know, Netflix, they're streaming movies everywhere. They've got big banks of servers. Chaos Monkey, that program itself will go in and shut down that bank. So they maybe have something in Austin, they have something in San Francisco, they have something in India, something in Japan. It'll go down and randomly shut something down so they can figure out, okay, we have to recover from this now. How fast can we get back up? So they put it in production, yeah. So that's DevOps culture to me. That's when you really have made your thing so you've worked together and you made a system that's so strong that even when things that you can't understand happen, it can still recover from those things. It's weird, but I mean, look it up. That's definitely what they've done, and there are other companies that have followed suit. Some of the unicorn companies like Amazon, like Google, like GE, they also have done similar different things to that. I have kept you guys 10 minutes over, and I really appreciate your time. I really didn't have enough time to talk about everything, and you guys listened to me talk for a long time. I will leave Payman all my information. If you guys have any questions, or if you want me to go more in depth or send materials, I'll put all my different materials and listings, and hopefully, does he have, I'll give it to him, and then he can get it out to everybody else. All right, I really appreciate your time.